A major legal battle is now unfolding in Washington, pitting President Trump against the federal courts. On August 30, 2025, a federal appeals court ruled that Trump's sweeping global tariffs are illegal, saying he overstepped his authority. This decision challenges the core of the administration's America First trade policy and could redefine presidential power for years. The court upheld an earlier lower court ruling, finding that the law Trump used does not let him create new taxes. The Constitution gives Congress, not the president, the power to levy taxes and tariffs. The court's ruling suggests the president cannot take that power, even during a national emergency. This case sparks a national debate. How much economic power can a president wield alone? For now, the tariffs remain in place, but the administration has until October 14, 2025, to appeal to the Supreme Court. If they don't, or if the Supreme Court declines the case, the tariffs will become unenforceable. The deadline has triggered intense legal and political maneuvering. The world is watching to see what happens next. Billions in trade and America's global economic relationships hang in the balance. The outcome could reshape the limits of presidential authority for a generation. To understand the conflict, we need to look at the tariffs themselves. In April 2025, President Trump announced a 10% tariff on nearly all imports, aiming to level the playing field for American companies. He justified this using the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, IEEPA, declaring a national emergency over trade deficits and drug imports. The administration argued these tariffs were a necessary response to threats against national security and economic well-being. In practice, when a foreign company sells to the U.S., a 10% tax is added, usually paid by American importers, who often pass the cost to consumers. Most of the financial burden falls on American businesses and families, not foreign companies. If upheld, these tariffs would affect a huge share of everyday goods, raising the portion of imports subject to tariffs from 16% to nearly 69%. This would mark one of the biggest shifts in U.S. trade policy in modern history. The plan was designed to use economic pressure to achieve policy goals and reshape global trade, but its legality and impact are now at the center of a national debate. The stakes for American consumers and businesses are enormous. At the heart of the legal case is the Constitution's separation of powers. Congress, not the president, has the power to levy taxes and tariffs. Lawyers challenging the tariffs argue that Trump usurped this authority, since tariffs are a form of tax. The appeals court agreed, ruling that the IEEPA does not give the president a blank check to impose tariffs. The court said Congress would have been explicit if it meant to hand over such power. The Trump administration, however, points to a strong dissent. 4 judges argued the president acted within his rights, citing national emergency and historical precedent. They argue the tariffs are temporary crisis measures, not permanent taxes. The White House also references Nixon's 1971 import surcharge as precedent. This sets up a historic debate over the true extent of presidential emergency powers in international economics. The Supreme Court may soon decide how far those powers go. The court's ruling triggered fierce reactions. President Trump called the decision a disaster and vowed to fight to the Supreme Court, framing tariffs as essential for national survival. Trade advisor Peter Navarro echoed this, calling the ruling partisan and warning of dire consequences if it stands. For the administration, the tariffs are central to their economic vision. Legal experts and critics, however, hailed the ruling as a victory for the rule of law and a crucial check on executive power. They argue the case is about constitutional limits, not trade policy. Many business groups and economists welcomed the decision, saying the tariffs created uncertainty and hurt the economy. Economist Dr. Linda Yue noted that ongoing legal battles make it hard for businesses to plan or invest. The uncertainty dampens economic activity and slows global trade. For critics, the ruling offers hope for a more stable, predictable trade environment. The legal fight is about more than tariffs, it's about the future of American governance. The tariff debate has real consequences for Americans. When tariffs raise the cost of imports, businesses often pass those costs to consumers. For example, higher steel prices mean more expensive cars for families. The Tax Policy Center estimates the tariffs could cost each taxpayer about $2,700 in 2026. The burden falls across the economy, from electronics to groceries. Despite claims that other countries pay, U.S. data shows American consumers bear most of the cost. Manufacturers relying on global supply chains face higher costs, making U.S. products less competitive. Other countries retaliate, hurting American exporters, especially farmers. The result: escalating trade barriers and disrupted business relationships. Uncertainty over tariffs makes companies hesitant to invest or hire. This slows economic growth and creates missed opportunities. The legal battle isn't just about law, it's about the economic health of the nation. The outcome will affect every American's wallet. The Trump administration faces an October 14, 2025, deadline to appeal to the Supreme Court. If they miss it, the tariffs become void. The White House is preparing a case, arguing the president's use of IEEPA was a legitimate response to a national emergency. They'll cite historical precedent and the appeals court dissent. The Supreme Court must decide if IEEPA allows the president to impose broad tariffs without Congress. The court hears only a fraction of cases, but the stakes make this one likely to be accepted. If the court takes the case, a final decision may not come until late 2025 or early 2026. Meanwhile, uncertainty will continue to hang over the economy. Businesses and trade partners are watching closely. The court's ruling will either validate aggressive executive trade powers or reassert Congress's role in economic policy. The implications will be felt for years. Not all Trump-era tariffs are affected by the court's ruling. The legal challenge targets only the broad 10% tariff imposed under IEEPA. Other tariffs, like those on steel and aluminum, were imposed under different laws and remain in place. Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act lets the president restrict imports for national security. Tariffs on specific goods from countries like China were imposed under Section 301 of the Trade Act of 1974. These targeted tariffs are separate from the IEEPA case and will continue regardless of the Supreme Court's decision. Even if the global tariff falls, many imports will still face duties. The legal fight is about a specific sweeping use of presidential power, not all tariffs. The complexity of U.S. trade law means different rules apply to different products and countries. Navigating this landscape remains a challenge for American businesses. This legal fight is about more than Trump's trade policy. The Supreme Court's decision will set a precedent for presidential power. If the court sides with Trump, future presidents could use emergency powers to control the economy without Congress. Supporters say this flexibility is needed in a fast-moving world. Critics warn it would concentrate too much power in one person, risking unpredictable and politically motivated policies. If the court upholds the lower ruling, it reaffirms Congress's authority over taxes and trade. Future presidents would need to work with Congress for major economic changes. The case forces the nation to confront who should control trade policy, the president or Congress. The answer will shape American law, politics, and the economy for years to come. The legacy of this battle will reach far beyond tariffs, defining the limits of executive power in the 21st century.